Good afternoon. I'm Brt, the chair of the Housing Opportunity Commission, and I want to welcome you to our first meeting of the year 2021 on January 13th. First, let me say Happy New Year to our commissioners and staff. And to those of you who may be listening in on live stream, we want to be able to start this year 2021, which is in fact, hopefully, will be some new horizons and new beginnings and some new opportunities for everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the commissioners who are present with us today. Fran Kelleher, who is our vice chair, Richard Nelson, who is our chair pro tem, Pamela Bird, commissioner, Linda Kroom, commissioner, Jeffrey Merkowitz, commissioner, and Jackie Simon, commissioner. We will be the ones presiding over the meeting today, and so I want to welcome all of you all to this meeting. Our first order of business today is, before I do that, let me just introduce, in October, we introduced the HOC. We've been working in conjunction with to incorporate the community forum into our virtual commission meetings. The commission will continue to provide time on its agenda for members of the public to participate and share their concerns by signing up online in advance to address the commission. The online sign-in form and guidance for participating in the community forum for commission meetings can be found on our website at https://hoc.about-hoc/commissioners.html. If you are viewing our meeting via YouTube, the hyperlink is available in the description section of your browser screen. Tonight's community forum is limited to 30 minutes. Scheduled speakers were contacted in advance of the meeting and will be prompted to speak by the platform moderator when their turn begins. Participants each have 3 minutes to speak. When your 3 minutes have expired, the meeting moderator will note the expiration of time and move on to the next speaker. For customers and others unable to address the commission this evening, you have the option to submit written comments to the commission on the same website page link provided in your YouTube. Please be sure to consult the participation guidelines to ensure your submission meets requirements. I want to thank you, and I want to go then to the first item on our agenda, which is a report from the Resident Advisory Board.
You're on mute. Chantel, you're on mute.
Good afternoon. My name is Chantel Reddix. Myself, Commissioner Crooms, the board members would like to wish Stacy, the commissioners, and the HOC staff a happy and healthy new year. I will be giving you brief updates of the RAB December 14th, 2020 meeting. For the purposes of our calendar year ending presentation, RAB invited Fred Swan, Director of Resident Services Division, as a guest presenter at the December 14th, 2020 meeting. Mr. Swan gave a detailed PowerPoint of the Residential Services Division program. He discussed some of the programs that are under the Residential Service Division, such as the HOC Academy, Family Self-Sufficient Program, Seniors Program, Food and Nutrients Program, and the Fatherhood Initiative Program. RAB was reminded that Montgomery County is the only housing authority that offers a Father Initiative Program. Resident Service Division provides affordable housing programs to participants with disabilities, youth aging out of our foster care, and participants moving from homeless programs into a Move Up program. Residential Service Division educates, offers training, and empowers HOC residents. The board will resume our work in 2021 with LPA on the HOC landing page for RAB. We discussed and agreed that we would defer holding formal elections once we're able to return to in-person meetings, and that the current seat holders will remain until such time. President Thompson will be the backup presenter in the event that Chantel Reddix is not available to attend the HOC Commission monthly meeting. RAB is still in the process of recruiting new board members, and our plan is to continue interviewing prospective candidates. Our board expects to bring on 3 additional new members by April 2020. In close, RAB is looking forward to working with Stacy, the commissioner, and the HOC staff to make this a great year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it's really important the work that you do and your organization does on behalf of our residents. As we've been going through the COVID and crises, trying to connect one to the other, I know how difficult it is and challenging it is for you all to continue to keep expansive involvement with all of our residents, but you are doing an outstanding job. I want to thank you very much for your involvement and continuing support, most recently for a review of our administrative plan for our housing insurance voucher program. So I want to thank you all for your continuing work. Next, we will go to the next item, which is our community forum. As I indicated in the beginning of the meeting, there's a procedure that we've outlined for persons to sign up to be speakers at our open community forum. Tonight, we have 2 persons who have met the requirements, and I will call upon them in order. The first one will be Karen Lundgren, and the second will be Marsha Coleman Adebayo. So I will in fact now invite Karen Lundgren to make a presentation to the commission.
Ms. Lundgren, you'll have 3 minutes on a timer to speak, and at the conclusion of the 3 minutes, let you know that your time has expired. If you'll just wait a moment, just a reminder that if you could mute any kind of live streaming you have going on so there's no interference with the Zoom meeting, we would appreciate that. And I will share my screen for the timer in just a minute to let you know when your time has begun. And you may begin.
Is Mrs. Lundgren there? Hello? Is Mrs. Lundgren present?
She was admitted into the meeting room, and it appears that she is on mute.
Ms. Lundgren, could you unmute your phone? There's a little microphone at the bottom left of the screen.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Something.
Yes.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I need for you to restart the time, please, because I was unmuted actually.
Yes.
So.
We have restarted the timer at 3 minutes, Ms. Lundgren.
Okay, but I want to make sure I can start at the beginning and let me know when I can start with the full 3 minutes, please.
You can start now.
Okay, good afternoon, commissioners. Happy belated New Year, too. Welcome to Commissioner Merkowitz. My name is Karen Lundgren. I am a former resident of HOC, and I need to make you aware of numerous illegalities inflicted on me by numerous high-ranking employees, including Stacy Spann, Lynn Hayes, Renee Harris, and on down. Osho Memline 2 has been giving you all and other outside third parties inaccurate information. I believe there needs to be numerous internal changes at the operational level, starting from Stacy Spann and on down. I would like for there to be a way to have much more accountability from each department. Lynn Hayes is behind the process of terminating me, and illegally so. Then I had to attend the termination hearings under Renee Harris, and each time was an absolute horror story. Under Renee Harris at these termination hearings were Janice McDonald and Susie Whitley. I still did not have a copy of the violation packet at these hearings. This is like a defendant going to court without knowing what the charges are. Lynn Hayes was colluding with the landlord against me, and she was sending private documents and notes to my landlord. And on one such occasion, when I came in to have a face-to-face meeting with Lynn Hayes and her assistant, Susan Ward, I asked why Miss Ward was present, and Lynn Hayes specifically told me that Miss Ward is here to take notes and that the notes are for internal purposes only. I subsequently discovered that Lynn Hayes sent these notes to my then landlord, Adarsh Ramakumar. Talk about illegal and a privacy violation, you all. Moving on to the termination hearings again, Renee Harris, Janice McDonald, and Susie Whitley slammed us with 35 to 80 pages of charges at each hearing and each time with no prior notice. It was based on this that my attorney began the reasonable accommodation process. This was another nightmare. My attorney and I were forced to turn over inpatient hospital records, which are never needed. This was on top of the 4 very specific letters my doctor had already written to, and it very clearly documented in these letters that I had a disability which limits major life activities. I was terminated too without any substantial evidence whatsoever. This was all based on false allegations made by a horrible and retaliatory landlord who went nuts on me after I complained about him to the Code Enforcement Department of Montgomery County. Ironically, it was Lynn Hayes who told me to report him to this department, and Lynn Hayes instigated this entire termination. Asham Memon has also outright refused to tell me, and Christine Jenkins, the director of HUD, who oversees HOC, specifically how my medical records are being stored at present and how they were transported electronically to the storage location at Gaithersburg, which I have grave concerns over as to their security and safety, not to mention proper protocols. You all, in summary, I have been put through literal hell by all these employees at HOC. Thank you for listening. There really needs to be some changes made, commissioners. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Lundergan, for complying with the time frame. And
thank you, Commissioner Priest.
And I will go next to the next speaker who signed up, Marsha Coleman Adebayo. Ms. Adebayo, are you on? I know that she was having some problems. Has she been?
She was just admitted into the meeting, and it seems that she's not on mute.
Ms. Adebayo?
Yes, this is she.
You are free to speak.
Thank you. Commissioners, my goal today is to once again rise to request the immediate transfer of parcel 177 known as Moses Macedonia Baptist Church Cemetery on the Montgomery County Burial Inventory back to the Black descendant community represented by Macedonia Baptist Church. Members of our church lie under your parking lot. The struggle for justice cannot stop. The argument that is occurring on Capitol Hill today is centered on justice. The demonstrations organized by the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition is about justice. We cannot relinquish our intergenerational responsibility to our ancestors to free them from the same governmental agencies that once enslaved them, ignored their cries, and then placed them under a parking lot. The writer, Alice Walker, said, "It is language more than anything else that reveals and validates one's existence. And if that language we actually speak is denied us, then it is inevitable that the forms we are permitted to assume historically will be one of caricatures, reflecting someone else's literacy or social fantasy. Black people have become someone else's fantasy because we have not secured the sacred place of our ancestors. The fight for Moses is fundamental to the fight for Black lives and dignity for our people and our ancestors." Freedom fighter Fannie Lou Hamer said, "There are things I feel strong about. One is not to forget where I come from, and the other is to praise the bridge that carried us over." The African and African Americans that you hold so low as to bury them, continue to have them buried under the HOC parking lot, is the bridge that carried Black people to where we are today. They do not deserve to be owned by HOC. They do not deserve to be owned by Montgomery County Parks and Planning. Every day that HOC owns our ancestors is a slap in the face of every Black person in the world and every person who truly loved freedom. Convey our ancestors back to the church, Macedonia Baptist Church, that sanctified the soil in which they uncomfortably sleep. We are prepared to meet with you to discuss the conveyance of our ancestors to the only institution that has never betrayed them, Macedonia Baptist Church. Thank you.
I want to thank you very much, Ms. Adebayo, for your passion and advocacy on behalf of descendants. And we are also looking forward during 2021 to be able to sit down and have a discourse so that we can find a way forward that is in fact recognizes the descendants on the site and how we can properly memorialize their presence on the site. So we look forward to having some conversations with you as we proceed during this year 2021. So I want to thank you again for your continuing support on behalf of those descendants.
Thank you so much, and we look forward to sitting down and talking to you as well.
Thank you very much. And we'll be back with you soon.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
We'll now move the agenda to the report from our Executive Director.
Good afternoon, commissioners and staff, and as well as everyone listening and watching. So the Executive Director's report has been submitted. I want to actually, we've got a relatively busy agenda, but I want to highlight one particular area on the agenda, and that is the COVID relief package that was signed into law December 22nd. And I want to highlight it because this $900 billion package includes a couple of noteworthy things that are related to our work. Mostly at this point, the bill actually contains somewhere around $12 billion in funding for U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development programs, to include $4 billion for emergency solutions grants for homelessness assistance, $5 billion in community development block grant, $1.25 billion for the Housing Choice Voucher Program, another $1 billion for project-based rental assistance, $685 million for public housing, $65 million for housing persons with AIDS, another $50 million for Section 202 housing for elderly, and $15 million for Section 811 housing for persons with disabilities. Now, there's still quite a bit of unpacking done. Some other highlights are that the low-income housing tax credit, the 4%, is actually fixed at 4% with the passage of this bill. And then the moratoria on both evictions and foreclosures continue under this bill, and specifically the moratoria for foreclosures for all federally backed mortgages. Those are HUD, USDA, FHA, VA, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac for another 60 days, beginning on March 18th. And then I will point out that there's some extension on moratoria for rental housing that is supported by the federal government as well. And so I wanted to, there's quite a bit in the package on that. We're actually coming out with an even briefer, more to the point summary on it. And so commissioners, you should expect that, but certainly if you have questions or there are issues, we'd like you to point those out so that we can get answers to you as quickly as possible. Again, still quite a bit of unpacking, not sure how they're gonna roll it out. There's some rental assistance to be doled out by Treasury, which is a first. And so we're interested to see how this all plays out.
Commissioner Keller.
Director Spahn, could I, as a point of clarification, note that the dollar amounts you were mentioning are national? Is that correct? And not for HOC?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Yes, you're absolutely right. That is in fact true.
So it's very encouraging that they are appropriating this kind of money for housing, but I didn't want anyone to be under the impression that we were getting all of that.
Yes, and I appreciate that, because what I left out and should have probably started and ended with is that much of that funding will come to directly to the state or the county government or city government, depending on where you are in each state. And from there, those amounts that get down to individual organizations will be determined.
Yes. Thank you for the clarification.
I'm pleased that the staff is providing for us a abstract short version of the impact of that bill as it relates to HOC. because having been through the process of many cases being part of the authorship of some of these major pieces of regulatory direction, I can understand that the average person doesn't even have a clue about what they're talking about. So I've asked us to look at the impact that we'll have on HOC as we go forward. Now, it's interesting that out of a $12 billion overall national budget, the amount that they have earmarked for the public housing area is really minuscule compared to the requirements and need for public housing. There was an article that appeared about a month and a half ago in one of the trade journals. It really kind of gave, and also from the National Policy Center at Harvard, that talked about the real value of how much undeferred maintenance there was in public housing. So when you think at what the amount that's been approved, while we are always thankful for it, it is in fact doesn't speak to the really significant need there is in this country for us to stabilize what we have beyond what we do about expanding. So I think I heard a comment from Commissioner Nelson.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Rick.
Thank you. I had a question, Stacy, in terms of 1B, the COVID phase. Are we doing anything at our senior buildings to facilitate seniors participating and/or, if necessary, getting to and from wherever they have to go to get inoculated?
So what? Okay, so here we go. Commissioner Priest, I want to come back to a point you made, but I'll answer Commissioner Nelson's question really quickly. So we've not made direct provision yet, but for them to be transported, what we are doing is working with a few partnerships in an attempt to actually get some testing done on site. And so we think that's actually there's actually some legs there. We hope there is. We've had inoculation on site. We've had testing on site. Thank you, Mr. Keller. I saw that knowing nod. So we've done testing on site at a number of our sites in partnership with the African American Health Partnership. We want to expand that work with both the African American Health Partnership and the county's Department of Health Services. And so my hope is that we'll be able to actually come up with an apparatus that does it on site, or at least finds some of the mobile inoculation opportunities. As you all well know, this population is extremely vulnerable. There's something that exciting just breaking today that we're investigating, and that is the potential for focusing on testing for vulnerable populations. It's wastewater testing. The wastewater itself contains some level of viral load. Consequently, it's actually a better opportunity to isolate where we have upward trajectory of infection, better than sort of a clinical diagnosis, which would have people doing it one by one. And where we have that, then we can work in partnership with HHS, African American Health Partnership, and others to really start to target inoculation, but also testing where possible, so that we can stem the spread. So thank you for asking. We're continuing to look at it and really try and be aggressive about developing those partnerships so that we can make sure folks get tested. I will say that there's been quite a bit of chatter about certain communities having a reticence around taking the vaccine. And so I want to point out that we have to be respectful of the history and the experience that those communities have faced historically, and in the face of refusal to vaccinate, we need to be testing, making sure that people have other supports, and constantly educating. This is the real only silver linings that I can think of are, one, we now have a proven apparatus for collaboration across government, quasi-government, private sector. that we ought to be able to mobilize for virtually all ills. And then two, that we really now have before us an opportunity to interface with our customers in a much different, more assertive way around health concerns. And because of comorbidities and awareness around comorbidities alone, we now have a greater responsibility to not just buttress housing, but housing supports, and that has to include physical, emotional, and psychological health.
Are there any other questions to Mr. Spann from commissioners?
Stacey, I don't know if you were done with your presentation, but I had a question on the COVID rental assistance program. And I was noting in your report, you mentioned that staff had reviewed approximately 1,400 applications and approved over 600. So I was just curious about the other 800. Does that mean those were denied or have not been processed yet? Or
no, it means that it means that there was at least one denial, and even though we've attempted to process, really the question you have goes to the heart of why are we denying folks? What were the sort of reasons, and then what happened? Well, so I'll get to the what happened first. There is a follow-on program that HHS was delivering. I think at this moment it may even be oversubscribed from a demand standpoint, certainly not a process standpoint as yet. We had somewhere around $1.1-ish million to support folks with, and I think folks were getting up to $1,800, which, quite frankly, if you're in significant arrears, it scarcely puts a dent in it, and that's the unfortunate part. The HHS program, I think, goes a little bit deeper and broader. For our 800 folks, they have the opportunity to apply to those HHS funds. But we're at this point, the program that we were administering on behalf of the county is shuttered.
Be fair to say that in fact we did not have enough money to serve those 800.
No, we did not. But look, when I talked earlier about the way that we interface with folks, customers in particular, and the collaboration, right? This was, we had immense pressure to hurry up and get money out the door. And what I think is where we fell short broadly, and I think we ought to be self-critical, is a broad education effort and also trying to figure out how we're equitable in terms of access and approval and then distribution of those monies. And what I mean by that is we have to recognize that there are still significant digital divide concerns and issues in our community. And for persons who, quite frankly, were forced to complete paper applications, or for whom English is a second or third language, or have developmental disabilities and lack supports, right? We have an equity gap. It's clear. I'm not sure how we're going to solve it going forward, given this recently passed stimulus, but it's something that we definitely have to be aggressive about. Commissioner Merkowitz, does that sort of get you there?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, a couple of follow-up questions. I guess one is, I think important issue you raised with the digital divide. So I don't know if, we're doing some kind of outreach to those who, I don't know if we have any indication of those who may not be able to access the resources online, or we're not seeing applications from, and whether we need to do any sort of outreach there. The other question was, of those 800 that weren't able to receive funding because of, insufficient funds, whether they're in a queue, if there's any sort of waiting list, or what sort of assistance we're working on to get them help as well.
Okay.
So I'll answer the second question first. We, again, our program shuttered and we were essentially operating this program on behalf of the county. And so we have submitted to them all the data with regard to the program, to include persons who were denied or were in a holding pattern. And my guess is that the county offered an opportunity for those persons to buy for the additional funding that came through HHS. I'll work to confirm that for you and get you an affirmative answer. And then on the first question, we were insistent and successful in our insistence that we stand up a paper application apparatus to account and allow for those persons who had digital or experiencing digital divide issues, some level of equity. And I think we were, we were aggressive on those points. We don't have agency for all those persons. We will continue to advocate for equity across the board. Again, the programs at this point are run by HHS and county agencies. So we have very little to say about the actual result.
No, yeah, and I understand that. So I do appreciate the advocacy on their behalf that you mentioned. So thank you.
Commissioner Simon. Unmute your phone, please.
Commissioner.
Stacy, I assume that this additional work has been done without additional resources or the ability to supplement staff temporarily to take this on, and that the agency has had to absorb this additional processing of 1,400 applications.
There was a modest fee, but human capital hours and processing eclipsed that fee quite easily.
I'm sure. And the other question I had is, it as the first batch that the agency helped with, that a lot of the issue is incomplete applications or people misunderstanding the questions and not having the data, or they literally don't meet the qualifications of the programs?
It's a combination of both. And just on the 800 folks, those were 800 persons, applicants who were denied. And in fact, they were denied, even though they were denied, we did extraordinary outreach using a couple teams, resident services, the folks in our compliance team, the folks in our call center. They reached out to every single individual who was initially denied. So there isn't anyone that's in a holding pattern. And so in most cases, in all cases, they either didn't meet the application criteria or didn't respond to the follow-up call, where we gave an opportunity for folks to provide supplemental information to, in fact, complete their application.
Is there an underlying problem in some of these programs in that the questions that are asked, the answers are not obvious, that a person wonders, well, do I answer it this way or that way? Is it the fault of the paperwork and the way questions are asked that are confusing to our applicants, either because of education or language or age, in addition to the digital divide? And if so, is there something we can do to be working on including this as more plain language?
So I think that with regard to more plain language, we can always do better with plain language. But the challenge here is that what we consider plain language is not actually ubiquitous for all, right? There's not a common
That's right.
what plain language is. And so I think the lessons learned for us, even in the other rental assistance programs we administer, is how we pull apart questions and make them as one-dimensional and straightforward as they possibly can, to how we are standing up an apparatus that allows appropriate translation of those materials in the most direct sense in whatever the dominant language or preferred language for our customer is. And that is as much an educational issue on our part as it is one where we just don't have adequate technology to do it quickly and efficiently. And then, I'd say the other big lesson learned is, that we have to examine the process that we have in place, because some of this we as a housing authority, as a developer, as a landlord, and I would posit virtually everyone else in our industry are really, really, really poor at emergency assistance delivery. It's not something we do, and we can see some of the impact of that, right, in our homeless delivery system, and how folks are housed one day and are having pretty significant emergency, and then the next day they're homeless, right? Not in all cases, right? There are no absolutes, but there's certainly some correlation, and we ought to be doing more to remap our current rental assistance processes to make them as ubiquitous as possible. And then I think the final thing, and we've been advocating and pushing for this, and we had some coaching and insistence from the county council. We are serving the same customers as the folks at HHS, as the folks in disabilities and so forth. And we have got to commit to getting our entire staff HIPAA trained so that goes away as an excuse. We have to have HIPAA appropriate systems. And then we've got to take down the wall between these agencies so that there is consistent collaboration around getting people housed, keeping them housed, and helping every single customer reach their fullest potential.
Well, I know that in my experience and exposure to some of the disability issues, clearly we miss the mark. And it's, I've had a lawyer say to me, I wouldn't know how to answer that question. So I hope that we can continue to push on this issue so that we can provide a more rapid response and increase the interagency collaboration. I look forward to that.
Thank you.
Stacy, the 800 that was denied, are they able to reapply in case we do get monies?
Well, certainly there's no prohibition for folks who are denied to reapply. They can absolutely reapply. Should we or the county get money? Yes, or have money available.
Thank you.
I would like to, if we could, advance the agenda. If there are any other questions you feel free to direct those to Mr. Spann. The next order of business on the agenda is, in fact, the commissioner exchange. Is there any specific information which the commissioners want to share one to the other? Okay, I would now move to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of our meeting of December 9th, 2020, and the approval of minutes of our administrative session also held on December 9th, 2020. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Coombs.
Second, Rick Nelson.
Second by Commissioner Nelson. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered. The next item on the agenda is a consent item for the appointment of members to the Board of Directors of the Housing Opportunity Community Partners Incorporated, which is Resolution 21-01, the first resolution of 2021. Is there a presentation on this, or can we move this item because it's a consent item?
I move approval of the consent item of approval of Varun and Lexon McDowell to the Board of Directors of Housing Opportunities Community Partners.
And I second the motion. Commissioner
moved.
Simon.
And seconded. Are there any questions? If there are none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. So ordered. We will now go into the committee reports and recommendations for actions portion of the agenda. The first report will come from the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee, chaired by Commissioner Nelson.
And the first item is acceptance of the first quarter FY21 budget to actual. And I guess, who are we having making that presentation?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. And for the record, this is Cornelia Kent, Chief Financial Officer. Terry Fowler, our Budget Officer, will be presenting this item. And I just want to preface this. Sorry, Tomi Adaba will be presenting this item. And I just want to preface this by saying that we will be working on a reforecast of the budget for FY21, and we'll be bringing that to your attention in February.
Okay.
And Tomi, apologies if you want to go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Cornelia. Good afternoon, Commissioners. The agency ended the quarter with a net cash flow surplus of $623,314, which resulted in a positive variance of approximately $3 million. It is worth noting that any non-receipt of rental income due to COVID-19 will not be reflected in the income statements immediately. Staff
excuse me, could someone advance the slide so we can see where she's at?
She's pretty much there.
Yeah, it's on page 75.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Staff anticipates that additional allowances will be set up in subsequent months to reflect the continuation of non-payment during the pandemic. The general fund experienced a positive expense variance primarily as a result of lapse in salaries and benefits coupled with savings in professional services, computer software, utilities, and tenant service expense. Several of the unrestricted opportunity housing properties exceeded budget due to timing, delay of establishing bad debt allowance in some of the unrestricted properties. There was a small amount of expenses for the public housing program at Emery Grove for communication costs and solid waste tax. And to conclude, the voucher program experienced a higher administrative surplus through September as a result of higher than anticipated administrative fee income and a positive variance in administrative expenses. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
I would, before I move acceptance, let me follow up on Pam's chat. Somebody's got a mic open and they're got water or something running that's making noise and is disturbing to those trying to hear. So if you're doing something other than just watching, please mute it. I would move resolution number 21-02, acceptance of the first quarter FY21 budget to actual statements.
Been moved. We have a second.
Commissioner Byrd, I second.
And properly moved and seconded that we accept resolution 2102 related to the first quarter fiscal year budget to actual statements. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. Next item.
We now go to the approval of the FY21 first quarter budget amendment, and the team will present. Cornelia, who's going to do the actual presentation?
Thank you, Commissioner. And this one will actually be presented by Terry Fowler, our budget officer.
Thank you, Cornelia. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We are presenting the FY21 first quarter budget amendment for approval. The net effect of the first quarter budget amendment resulted in a surplus of approximately $131,000. When the budget was adopted, we did project a draw from our general fund operating reserve of just under $360,000. And the recommendation is that the surplus be used to reduce the projected draw, bringing it to $228,791. The total operating budget for the agency will increase from $278.7 million to $280.1 million. And that is resulting from normal amendments that we do of rolling forward unspent bond draws for our bond programs of the multi and single family, extensions of 2 properties to account for their anticipated conversion. And the capital budget has increased from $236.8 million to $237.9 million in rolling forward unspent capital projects that were previously approved and funded. There's no change to the personnel complement, and the resolution for this budget amendment can be found on page 94 of the packet, and I'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
Hearing no questions, I'll move approval of resolution 21-03, approval of FY21 first quarter budget amendment.
Second,
Commissioner Kelleher seconds.
it's been properly moved and seconded to approve resolution 21-03. Are there any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. So ordered.
The next item is a approval of the calendar year 20 third quarter budget amendment. Pardon me, budget amendment.
Thank you again, Commissioner Nelson, and Terry Fowler again will present that item for us.
Thank you, Cornelia. On September 1st of 2020, Bower Park Apartments was refinanced using tax credit equity. And the purpose of the budget amendment is to establish a calendar year budget for the period of September 1 through December 1, 2020. A budget for calendar 21 has already gone through commissioner approval and was approved on November 4th.
Terry, if I can interrupt for one moment.
Sure.
This is actually fourth quarter budget amendment, is it not?
Well, typically because the fourth quarter has not closed, we have not presented December reports. That is why we are presenting this to you as a third quarter amendment, because it went to the December BF&A committee. And at that committee, we do first quarter fiscal year and third quarter calendar year reporting.
Well, I'm sorry, the language on says that the budget amendment will incorporate a budget for the period of September 1 through December 31.
Yes, for the 4-month period that the property was established as a tax credit. We present quarterly budget amendments, and within that amendment, it could affect more than that quarter's period of time. It's just the timing of when the budget amendment is being presented. But I do understand your point that the period that we are presenting to you encompasses the majority of the fourth quarter.
Okay, go ahead. I'm not sure I fully understand what you just said, but go ahead.
Okay. The budget will be restricted. The cash flow is restricted to the property, and the resolution for approval of the amendment, which will incorporate a 4-month budget for calendar 20 for Bower Park Apartments Limited Partnership, can be found on page 100 of your packet. And I'd be happy to address any other questions that you may have.
Hearing none, then I'll move resolution 21-04. approval of calendar year 23rd quarter budget amendment.
Thank you.
Your second.
Mr. Kelleher will second.
It has been properly moved and seconded that we approve resolution 21-04. Are there any questions?
Yeah, and let me go back. I'm sorry, Terry. Does that mean then when the BF&A considers the next calendar year budget amendment, like for the first quarter of 21, we will also at that time address any changes for the month of December?
I do not anticipate that there will be an additional budget amendment for our calendar properties. We don't see consistent budget amendments for our calendar properties. This is a unique amendment because of the conversion of Bower Park Apartments in the middle of a year. And the conversion occurred in September, and the next BF&A meeting did not occur until December to present the amendment for the 4-month period. In February, we will bring second quarter fiscal year budget amendments to BF&A and to commission in March for approval.
Okay, just for the future, I think if we have something like this, I'm sorry I didn't focus on this during the committee meeting. I think we ought to clarify that actually this is third quarter budget amendment and we don't anticipate a fourth quarter budget amendment. I mean, it's very confusing when you look at this because technically the fourth quarter does go all the way through the 31st of December. So we need to just clean up the language in terms of how we describe what it is that's included.
Okay, we will work with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It has been moved and seconded to approve this resolution 21-04. Are there any further questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. So ordered.
Thank you.
Next item is the uncollectible tenant accounts receivable write-offs. Cornelia, are you gonna, I guess?
Sure. Yep. Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. And so Eugenia Pascal, our controller, will walk us through the uncollectible tenant account receivables. And this is for the first quarter FY21. Eugenia. Eugenia, are you there? I think you're muted.
All right, sorry, I can't unmute. Good afternoon, Commissioners. HOC current policies to provide for an allowance for any tenant accounts receivables outstanding for over 90 days. The staff also recommends to the Commission on a quarterly basis the write-off of uncollected receivables from past tenants. The proposed write-offs for the first quarter of fiscal year 21 amounted to $77,605. This total includes $40,603 unpaid receivables from Opportunity Housing properties, largely from former tenants at Scattered Sites 1 Development Corp. And TPM MPDU 59. $20,825 from the Supportive Housing McKinney Program, $15,807 from RAD Properties Seneca Ridge, and $370 from former public housing tenants. The BF&A committee has informally reviewed the proposed write-off at its December 15, 2020 meeting. If you have any questions, we will be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Just a quick question, Eugenia. I think at the committee meeting, we talked a little bit about, particularly with, the current economic situation and the potential for large numbers of write-offs, seeing, maybe doing a 30, 60, 90-day analysis of delinquencies before they reach the 90-day write-off point so that we see what's coming down the line. Is that something that you all are working on?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Our agreement was to deliver that to you in advance of next quarter. We talked about a sort of a monthly schedule around it. Yep.
Okay. Yep. Great. I figured as much when Cornelia mentioned that we'd be getting an updated budget for February, but just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
I would move approval of resolution 21-05, authorization to write off uncollectible tenant accounts receivable.
So move, Commissioner Croom.
Properly moved and seconded to approve resolution 2105 dealing with the uncollectible tenant accounts receivable. Are there any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. So ordered.
The next item is the extension of the use of PNC Bank line of credit. And Cornelia and I guess Eugenia are going to take care of that.
Correct. Thank you. And again, Eugenia Pascal will walk us through this item.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon again, commissioners. The commission has previously approved a taxable draw of up to 11.6 million from the PNC line of credit to fund the acquisition and other costs related to the purchase of the Lindsay holding site, also known as Wheaton Gateway. As of September 30, 2020, 11.5 million has been drawn from the line of credit. The estimated annual cost is approximately 121,000 based on the LOC's taxable borrowing rate of 1 month LIBOR, which is as of December 9 for this report, plus a spread of 90 basis points. The staff is recommending the extension of the use of the line of credit related to the Wheaton Gateway project through September 2021, which will be co-terminus with the PNC two lines of credit. The BFNA also has informally reviewed the recommendation at its December 15, 2020 meeting. Thank you.
I get a motion to.
I would move approval of resolution 21-06, the approval to extend the use of the PNC line of credit.
Second, Commissioner Simon.
Probably moved and seconded. Are there any questions? I have one question, which only relates to the fact that all we're doing right now is extending the period of time to use the funds. We're not increasing the amount of funds coming from the line of credit.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. So ordered.
Next item is renewal of the property management contract at Tanglewood Cluster. And I guess we're going to have that presented by Jay Berkowitz.
Correct.
Yes, good afternoon, commissioners. The property management contract for Tanglewood and Sligo, 527 Dale Drive, Southbridge Apartments in Manchester Manor for the property management services is expiring on March 31st, 2021. The contract provides for 3 one-year renewals. The last contract was executed in April 2017, and this is the last renewal. Tanglewood and Sligo is a 132-unit garden-style apartment community consisting of 85 light-tech units at 60%, 14 units at 50%, and 33 units at 33% of the median income. Tanglewood is located in Silver Spring. The property received a score of 88B for its most recent REACT inspection in 2020, and the property has maintained an average occupancy of 95% over the last 2 years. Manchester Manor is a 53-unit, 6-story mid-rise community built in 1959 and renovated in 1999, located in Silver Spring. The community consists of 5 market and 48 units restricted at or below 60% AMI. The property received a 98A on its most recent REACT in March 2019, and the property has maintained an average occupancy of 98% over the last 2 years. Southbridge is a 39-unit mixed-income community built in 1964 and renovated in 2012, located in Tacoma Park. The property has 19 market units and 20 units restricted at or below 50% AMI, and the property has maintained 97% occupancy over the last 2 years. Dale Drive is a 10-unit garden community built in 1943 and renovated in 2008 with 9 units restricted at or below 40% AMI. The tenant is a Montgomery County Coalition for the Homeless for a 30-year term. The renewal of the property management contract for Tanglewood and Sligo, Manchester Manor, Dale Drive, and Southbridge for 1 year will not have a budget impact as the costs associated with the services were factored into the calendar year 21 and the fiscal year 21 property budgets. Additionally, the renewal will be performance-based, so the management fee would be lowered if revenue declined below budgeted expectations. In addition to occupancy, performance criteria will include REACT scoring. Staff requests that the Commission approve the property management contract renewal with Residential One Management for 1 year at Tanglewood and Sligo, Manchester Manor, Dale Drive, and Southbridge. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. One is a procedural one. Because we are the managing partner in the tax credit properties, does that mean that we can approve these contracts without having to go back to the LLC? To the board?
If it's a limited partnership or a limited liability company, if you look at the language in the actual resolution, you'll see in the different capacities that HOC is acting. It's only when the property is owned by a development corporation that we have to meet separately.
I see. Okay. Second question, I guess, are we taking whatever steps are necessary to correct whatever the conditions were at Tanglewood that caused us to get an 88 instead of a 98?
It was corrected.
Oh, okay. Having those questions answered, I would move approval of Resolution 21-07, renewing the property management contract with for Tanglewood, Sligo Hills, Apartments, Dale Drive, Southbridge, and Manchester Manor.
Commissioner Byrd, I second.
And properly moved and seconds to approve Resolution 2106 regarding extension of property management contract. That's 2107, I'm sorry. Are there any questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. So ordered. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
From the Budget and Finance Committee, we will now go to the Development and Finance Committee, chaired by Commissioner Simon.
Good afternoon. The first item we are going to undertake is the Sandy Spring Missing Middle Initiative. And I would ask, as you introduce this, that you flesh out a little for those not familiar with it, with the missing middle concept, so that there's so people can follow us.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Kayleen Brown, Deputy Executive Director, and I will turn this over to Jay Shepard, Senior Financial Analyst in the Real Estate Group, who will discuss this item with you along with Zachary Marks. Jay, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Kayleen, and good afternoon, Commissioners. As Kayleen said, my name is Jay Shepard, and I'm a Senior Financial Analyst in the Real Estate Division here at HOC. Presenting this item for procurement and contract approval for the Sandy Spring Missing Middle Initiative. And as Commissioner Simon pointed out, we can add a little bit of detail here. This initiative in Sandy Spring represents the land use entitlement for a missing middle housing opportunity, which in context really is a range of multi-units or a cluster housing approach to create more units that are compatible in scale with typical suburban detached single family homes. That really helps on a lot of fronts, but it helps meet the growing demand in the county for walkable urban living, but it really is in a village type of format. So it's a little more density, but on a scale that feels very suburban. And I hope that was a good background there for that. But in November, we solicited 4 firms from our pool of our legal counsel that was established by the commission on April 3rd in 2019. All 4 did have applicable expertise in land use counsel. And after reviewing the pricing from the firm, staff believes the most responsive and responsible bid is from the firm Selzer Gervich, Rabin, Wertheimer, and Pollitt. That their price was $251,381.25. We recommend the commission resolve approval for the task order to engage the firm, but also provide an additional contingency amount, which is about 11.38%. That brings the total up to $280,000. And that's to really account for any unforeseen circumstances during the term of the engagement. To also bring the budget up to meet this total authorization and to reflect the fact that pre-development budgets are done in chunks. We do that to, number one, allow progress to occur by milestones, but also 2, not to overly encumber operating budgets and otherwise use our funds as needed as we progress. Therefore, the pre-development budget, which was last approved in July of 2020, had included only $100,000 in preliminary legal work. Therefore, the request today increases that budget authorization by $180,000, which matches the obligation of the task order, which is a total of $280,000. So thank you for your time. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those now.
Are there questions?
We get a motion to approve resolution 2108.
If there are no questions, I would move resolution 2108.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve resolution 2108, dealing with the Sandy Spring Missing Middle Initiative. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. So ordered.
Great.
The
Thank you
next,
very much.
the next item on our agenda is a review of bond counsel contracts and a renewal with Kutak Rock LLP and Ballard Spar LLP, consistent with our current contract and prior approvals and the procurement policy.
Again, for the record, I'm Kayleen Brown, and I will be discussing this item with you. By way of background, in 2017, the Commission approved a new procurement, which selected Kutak Rock and Ballard Spar to a new initial three-year contract for bond counsel services with 2 optional 1-year renewals for a maximum term of 5 years. In that approval, any renewals must be approved by the Commission. And in January of 2020, the Commission approved the first renewal, and this is the second and last renewal. Bond counsel to the Commission provides services that allow us to enter the securities market to issue bonds, tax-exempt bonds principally, and gives its opinion such that the market sees the validity of the bonds as they're issued and confirms that they are exempt from federal income taxes. Bond counsel also performs a number of other services, including assistance with preparing documents, bond transcripts, as well as inquiries from the IRS in the event the bonds that are issued are audited. And they also answer miscellaneous questions that HOC may have with respect to bonds that are issued from time to time. And Kutak Rock has provided services throughout the years. So at the time that the Commission engaged these 2 firms, and because of the history with the Commission's parity indentures, there are 4 parity indentures in the multifamily program and 3 in the single family The single family program dates back to 1979. And throughout the history, there have been a number of cross-calling and redemptions to lower borrowing costs overall. So it's a very complicated program. There's a 2009 indenture that was created when the financial markets collapsed in 2009, and the Treasury introduced a program to help housing finance agencies out of that crisis. And then in 2019, there was a new program to solve for bond cap issues. In any case, because of the complexities of these programs and the fact that they're all intertwined and the securities are on par with all that are issued in those indentures, the Commission agreed that Kutak-Rock would continue to serve as bond counsel in these parity indentures, and that for HOC's programs or HOC's properties, Kutak-Rock would continue to serve as bond counsel while Ballot Spar came up to speed. And as it turned out, there haven't been any private developer transactions to speak of because of limited resources. So Ballard Spar hasn't really had an opportunity to work on as bond counsel for HOC. In any case, they're part of the team, and in the event those opportunities present themselves, they are available to us to work on those transactions. And so we're requesting approval to extend them as well. This is the, as I said, this is the last renewal. And if the Commission were to approve it tonight later on in 2022, which is the term to which this renewal extends, we would go back to the marketplace with a new RFP and solicit firms that would be interested in serving the Commission as bond counsel. So at this time, we're asking for approval to extend this contract, or to renew this contract for one final term. And if there are questions specific to this, I can answer those questions. But it's pretty straightforward. All the details are outlined in the packet, and I'll take your questions at this time.
Corrine, what risk is there in these contracts running simultaneously and concurrently? Would it be wiser that one expires at 1 year or on a 2-year basis, and then the other one on a 3-year basis with the ability to roll over, so we don't have to replace both of them in the future at the same time?
No, there's really no risk specific to a particular discipline in the bond program. The risk would be if all of our third-party professionals in the bond program were to expire at the same time and they all rolled over. So, for example, if our underwriters all rolled over at the same time and we changed them, if our financial advisor rolled over at the same time and bond counsel and we changed all of them at the same time, that would be the risk. As it turns out, they all mature at different times. And so if the Commission were to change underwriters, that happens at a different time, usually in January. Financial advisor happens in July and bond counsel in April. So they all happen at different times.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Move approval of resolution 21-09, bond counsel contracts renewal.
Second, Commissioner Simon.
Properly moved and second. Other questions? One question I have, Karen, is that could you just for a second, I mean, I know that this is a very specialized area, and from my understanding, there are not a large number of companies that have this kind of expertise in this space, correct?
There actually are a large number of firms that do provide bond counsel for housing finance agencies. The issue for housing finance agencies, particularly those that have parity indentures, is one of consistency. So for housing finance agencies that mainly do conduit issuances, where, and by that I mean they do one-off transactions for developers, where they issue standalone indentures where a development is financed in an indenture, and the assets that are in that indenture support a development in and of itself, there are no real issues there. But when you have a parity indenture where all of the bonds are on parity, all the revenues in that under that resolution can be used to support the bonds in that resolution, you really do want firms that understand how they're all interrelated and can issue opinions throughout the years so that there's consistency across program. And there are firms in the industry that do that. Switching out bond counsel could create issues if a firm takes a different position from, say, a 1979 indenture that you've been issuing, for 40 years, and that could really disrupt your program and render, all the opinions for 40 years different from what we're used to, and therefore your program, there are issues with what you've issued over the years, and because of the cross-calling and cross-collateralization, there could be problems in it. But there are firms who, many law firms who do this type of work. So.
Okay.
There's a cost to switching. There's a switching cost.
There could be a huge cost, and it's not just dollars and cents. It's really, does your program work?
Yeah, it's generally not going to be dollars and cents. I mean, in fact, when we start getting in these very specialized areas, first off, there's only a handful of folks who do it really, really well and consistently. Second, the cost is not financial. It's at least not near-term financial.
Yeah.
Right. It's how well run your program is. How does that then impact your ability to execute? How the market views you? Where you're rated, who's buying your bond. Like it's
interpretation of the tax code, because some firms may take a very conservative look at the tax code, and some may be a little bit more liberal. And are you at risk of the IRS saying your bonds are now taxable? And what does it mean for your many years of bonds that you've issued? And so long term, it's huge financial risk potentially, and not just what it costs you to pay your bond counsel.
Are there any other questions? It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2109. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered.
Our next item on the agenda, we turn our attention to the Metropolitan and a selection of an architect and contracts to make loans for the Metropolitan Limited Partnership and Metropolitan Development Corporation.
And this item will be discussed by Hyun-Suk Choi, Senior Financial Analyst in the Real Estate Group. Hyun-Suk, please.
Yes, thank you, Karine. Sure. Good evening, Commissioner. For the record, my name is Hyun-Suk Choi. I'm the senior finance analyst on the real estate development team. So Metropolitan was built right above the Montgomery County in 1997. The Metropolitan currently providing 92 affordable unit, 216 market rate unit, and commercial retail space in downtown Bethesda. In October 2020, staff issued solicitation for the architectural service for the renovation of a Metropolitan from that architecture and accessibility consulting pool established under RQ 2080. Staff received the 5 proposals from the Holt Coughlin March, Kishimoto Golden Dahlia, KTGY Architecture Planning, and the Minor Feinstein Architect, and Zevo Architecture and Design on November 18, 2020. Scoring team completed its review and the response on December 1st and December 2nd based on the 5 criteria: experience, price, qualification, schedule, and minority female disabled on the business. There was a 5 respondents to that Metropolitan test score. MFA is scored the highest on average of the evaluator score on the criteria with an average of 82.3%. Based on evaluation of the 5 response, staff recommend the Minor Feinstein Architect as an architect of record for the renovation of a Metropolitan. MFA is a proven history of a successful work for the HOC including Alexander House and Arcola Towers. The renovation will be similar in scope to the Alexander House and to increase the efficiency of the building to reduce the operation cost to the both property and the resident. Staff requesting $699,622 for the pre-development phase of the architectural service to be funded with a loan from the OHRF. The service for this phase is including several components to move design development from the concept through the construction documents and to prepare the low-income housing tax credit application for the submission to the DHCD. Additionally, staff requesting $100,000 for the to be funded with a loan from the OHRF for the interior designer service to be covered concept development through the construction documentation documents. Staff requests the commission approve the selection of the Minor Feinstein architect as the architect of a record for the renovation of the Metropolitan, and then approve the loans of $559,775 to Metropolitan Development Corporation and $239,887 to the Metropolitan Fedesta Limited Partnership, respectively totaling $799,622 for the architectural and interior designer service for the pre-development phase of a rehabilitation of the Metropolitan to be funded from the OHRF. I'm happy to answer your question.
Questions?
No question, but and I'll support this, but just want to reiterate an issue that came up in the committee meeting, which was the desire of commissioners to see the pool expand to include more minority, female, and disabled owned businesses.
Yep.
Commissioner, certainly appreciate that point, and I'm glad you actually voiced it again.
Well, I think in this, at least some sub-consultants, two of them engineers and a structural engineer. So there is some effort by this firm, but we just have to be more aggressive on this in some way. And I look forward to our moving and succeeding at that effort vigorously. Are there other questions related or observations related to this proposal? If not, I recommend approval of resolution number 2110.
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to approve resolution 2110 dealing with the Metropolitan. Are there any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Nay. So ordered.
Thank you.
Next, we turn our attention to Stewart Town Homes and approval of its financing plan, feasibility, and public purpose, and the authorization to issue loans to HOC for acquisition and construction financing. Who's going to be presenting this proposal to us?
Hi, Commissioners. This is Victoria Dixon. I'm presenting the financing plan for Stewart Town this evening.
Thank you.
It's an existing 94-unit apartment community in Gaithersburg, Maryland, owned by a former LIHTC entity for which HOC has acquired full ownership. Previously, the Commission approved the final development plan in December. The property has applied for an allocation of 4% tax credits, and the proposed plan totals $38.2 million to acquire, renovate, and finance the property. We anticipate closing of the transaction to occur in March or April of 2021. For public purpose, as part of the transaction, 100% of units will be restricted for households with incomes at or below 60% of AMI, of which an expected 34 units will benefit from subsidy programs of project-based vouchers and low vacancy vouchers. The subject meets the needs of the community to preserve affordable housing in furtherance of HOC's mission, supporting the allocation of available volume cap. In particular, the proposed property will preserve availability of 3 and 4 bedroom units for larger families at affordable rates. The property currently benefits from 100% tax exemption from the state and county. Such exemption is expected to continue, and based on estimated all-in interest rate of 4.58%, which is inclusive of a large cushion for interest rate movements, the property is projected to support a permanent loan of approximately $11,694 million, which is 124,000 units dollars per unit. This could increase if interest rates are favorable at the time of closing, and based on rates today, the mortgage could size up to just under $14.5 million. As part of the financing plan, staff is requesting an allocation of up to $16 million in volume cap for the transaction and approval to issue bonds and a first mortgage loan amount of the same to be insured by FHA risk share mortgage insurance, with HOC assuming 25% of the risk. The transaction is expected to generate approximately $8.4 million in tax credit equity and require an approximate $16 million of tax exempt financing to meet the 50% test. The commission is also being requested to approve provision of a seller's note of approximately $11.6 million, which represents part of the property's acquisition price. We are also going to request of the county to assign the existing $2.1 million HIF loan to the new entity. Provided on page 160 is a summary of the bond authorizing resolution, which has been prepared by bond counsel for the commission's approval. In summary, actions requested for the commission to approve for this transaction include approval of the financing plan as presented, approval of the feasibility, public purpose, and allocation of $16 million in volume cap for the transaction, approval of the bond authorizing resolution, authorization to issue a financing commitment for the mortgage loan to be credit enhanced via FHA risk share mortgage insurance, for which HOC will assume 25% of the risk, approval to provide the seller's note of approximately $12 million to the borrower, and finally, approval for the borrower to accept the proposed loans. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I wanted to know, when would this project be completed?
Sorry, I have to refer back. Can you go to the schedule? It's back on slide 154 potentially. No, further back, sorry. There we go, 150. Yes. So the renovations are expected to be completed towards the end of 2022.
Oh, August 2022. Okay, okay.
Yep.
Other questions?
Commissioner Simon, I'm sorry, are you on mute?
No, she's not. She's on.
I move
now.
approval of resolution 21-11.
I second Commissioner Croom.
There are two resolutions related to that item, 21-11 and 21-11B. So you want to recommend both of those, Commissioner Nelson?
Okay.
And I'll second both.
I'll modify my to approval of 21-11 and 21-11B.
And I second Commissioner Croom on both.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve resolution 21-11 and 21-11B. Are there any questions? I would just say for the record that this is a project that I really like. It's 94 units of really affordable housing. And this is a great investment to sustain affordable housing in the county. So I certainly support this motion. All those in favor of supporting this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered.
Thank you.
The next item will be discussed by Marcus Irvin, Housing Acquisition Manager, and it's authorization for the Executive Director to execute guaranteed maximum price contract with Brzezina Construction for the West Side Shady Grove transaction.
All right. Good evening. Oh, sorry. All right. Good evening, commissioners. For the record, Marcus Irvin, Housing Acquisition Manager for the Real Estate Development Department. Next slide, please. Next slide. Commissioners, I'm here this evening to present the last component of this development, which is slated for closing at the end of this month, January 28th, to be exact. Tonight on the agenda, in order to continue the advancement of the development, staff is recommending the commission approve the authorization for the executive director to execute a guaranteed maximum price contract with Brzezina Construction in an amount not to exceed $76.4 million. Recall that we closed on the transaction initially for the land just December of 2019 with a modified concept, which resulted in a reduction of residential units. Now proposed 268 mixed income, mixed use development, including 3-bedroom units and a number of UFAS and audiovisual units, along with the Up-County HOC Service Center. Just last month, on December 9th, the final development plan was also approved, which allowed the executive director to enter into third-party contracts, accept a HIF loan from the county, and other related activities. Next slide. This just summarizes the prior actions approved by the commission, dating back to the initial acquisition, the financing component that occurred over the summertime, and the last 2 resolutions in December for the approval of the final development plan, also the financing plan, feasibility and public purpose, and bond authorizing resolution. Next slide. In summary, the development overview, once again, 268 units, considerable amount of amenity and retail space, including the HOC Service Center and a corner retail space for a national pharmacy. Estimated project cost approximately $119.35 million. Total construction contract not to exceed $76.4 million. And the milestones, which we'll show later in the slide deck, construction start of February of 21, approximate construction period of 24 months, with the first units coming online between September and November of 22. Construction concluding in January of 23, and stabilization around the first of the new year in 2024. Next slide. We've gone through the development overview, but essentially in the bottom left-hand corner shows you the scope and scale of the development, inclusive of a variety of townhomes, condominiums, the Daily, which was phase A, built just a few years ago, and building D, the proposed development highlighted in blue, and then one last multifamily phase known as building B, all proximate to the red line Shady Grove Metro Station, which allow not only our future residents and folks occupying the service center to have convenient access to the building. Next slide. Just a collection of images that illustrate the aesthetic that we're going for in the development. High quality design by our interior designer, RDJ, as well as our architect of record, KTGY. Next slide. The development includes a high quality development team, including Brzezina Development, Construction and Property Management, and also EY is our co-developers, and architecture by KTGY Architecture and Planning. Next slide. This contains a summary of the development budget. As you'll see, the subtotal of about $69.8 million prior to final savings, which we're hammering out with the Brzezina Construction. Right now, the total of roughly $76.4 million. We do anticipate some additional savings within the residential line item, the amenity area, and also the HOC Service Center as we finalize numbers. Also including a 3% hard cost contingency for any unknowns. And a lot of the fees just represent the market shift in the construction sector necessary to complete the development. And as mentioned, the team will continue to seek savings during the buyout phase of the development. Next slide, please. This illustration just represents the proposed phasing for the development. The Phase A component to your left illustrates the structured garage, which is wrapped by residential units. There's a sky bridge that connects the Phase B portion, which contains the HOC service center, the retail amenities, the courtyard pool area central to the development. So the project would proceed beginning in February of 21. Some of the notable things that we'll see in terms of site activity will be the garage sometime between the spring and fall of 21, the Phase A building or Phase B following in succession of one another, and then delivery of the units towards the latter part of 23. Next slide. And in summary, once again, staff recommends, which is supported by the Development and Finance Committee, that the commission authorize the executive director to execute a guaranteed maximum price contract with Bozzuto Construction Company in an amount not to exceed $76.4 million. At this time, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Commissioner Byrd, I have a question, please. So in the event or the risk that Bozzuto was to go over that guaranteed max price amount, would they alert HOC as to what their plan would be to lower that max price or get it back down to that price?
Yeah, under the guarantee maximum price, we do have a change order in process, and one of the strong aspects of this project is having EYA and Bozzuto Development monitoring the ongoing construction and budget. So in the event that a change order was to occur, the team would be alerted. We'd identify where we can look for savings or alternatives. So we have an all hands on deck along with a third-party construction manager monitoring the budget and process.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, it's a question I have without asking you to reveal any proprietary data. Are we monitoring the performance at the daily, and have we determined any experience they've had over there, whether it's related to design or operations or estimate of occupancy, that would affect what we're doing here?
No, I mean, we continue to just monitor the overall market and rental recommendations that we receive from not only Bozzuto and then also a study that we're running support the transaction for the future. Bozzuto is not currently managing the daily, but worth noting at this particular development, we will have, I would say, even a higher level of amenities and units. And once again, just being proximate to the Shady Grove and all the news about the life sciences corridor would only bolster the attractiveness of the development. But it's something that we can continue to monitor.
So is Bozzuto totally out of the daily?
Yeah.
Yes, when they sold the development, a different property manager was hired for ongoing operations.
And they sold it at what point in the development or occupancy phase of it?
It was sold right around the time that the property was stabilized.
Okay.
It's doing, I mean, so there's so Marcus alluded to it. We're conducting an independent market study itself to sort of get at broad performance. There's no doubt that the daily itself would not be among the comps there. But it also gives us a good proxy for what else is happening more broadly in the marketplace, so that if there is something significant that has occurred, that market study, which is underway right now, should be actually concluding, would pick it up.
Why are you saying the daily wouldn't be a comp?
No, I said would.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said wouldn't. Okay. Yeah. No, fine. All right.
One question, Marcus, is this is a request for a guaranteed maximum price contract.
Correct.
And you also just mentioned to a response to an earlier question about having amendments to the contract. And this is a guaranteed maximum price contract. If the builder just exceeds the price that he's guaranteeing, each additional cost.
That's
You know,
correct.
we're talking about change in scope of work. You talk about amendments. You're not talking about price changes.
Oh, correct. Yeah, they're held to a guaranteed maximum price. So any deviations, that's incumbent on the contractor.
Yeah.
However, I mean, I think there's a provision in the contract. If there's some issue that you know, frankly couldn't be accounted for or isn't the responsibility of the contractor, there'd at least be a discussion around, you know, how that impacts the cost of the development. But yes, it is in fact a guaranteed maximum price, but there's always an allowance in those for something that is completely unexpected that might occur.
These are extraordinary conditions that may become evident during the project.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are there other questions?
Move approval of resolution 20-12.
I second.
Been probably moved and seconded that we approve the resolution 21-12 for the West Side Shady Grove. Are there any other questions? Just a comment. I think this project has probably been before the commission during 2019 and 20 more than any project we've seen. So I'm hoping that we will be able to come to some point that we won't see too many more action required to get this project out of the ground.
Well, we want to bring every eventuality regarding a development to you, and this one, the pace was unusually fast, but we're happy that we embarked on it, as it means some significant growth in our portfolio, considerable levels of affordability, balance with amenities, but buttressed by a service center on that first floor with some retail. So we're excited about it.
Yeah.
But Mr. Chair, let me just say though that I think it has been valuable discussion, because in fact, as a result of some of the discussion we've had in our commission meetings, there have been some significant changes in terms of affordability, in terms of the site office for HOC Service Center. So, I mean, there have been a number of things that have resulted, in addition to the fact that the commission is aware in real time as the staff is proposing additions or changes or modifications, as opposed to waking up one day to find out that 6 months ago something was changed. So I'm not unhappy about the number of times it's come before the commission.
My comment was not at all to devalue the number of times we've been here, no things we've accomplished. I just wanted to note that this has in fact created that record.
Okay.
It's all been for the benefit of the project and for the residents, but I just wanted to make that notation. So I wasn't at all saying that you come too often. Just don't come too many more.
All right.
Okay. Any other
Looks
questions?
like Jackie is trying to ask a question, but
I can't see her.
Her sound is not working. You're off mute now, Jackie, but I don't know if there's some other button that you're missing. Your mic isn't working.
Yeah.
While we're waiting on Commissioner Simon, so the GMP, is that a pretty standard practice in the industry, Marcus? The guaranteed maximum price?
Yes. Fairly standard for most of what you will see when you have the scope that's identified, and hold the contractor to a price, and then also give allowances for other elements within the scope. But that's one of the most standard forms of a contract.
I think we've actually done that both ways, haven't we? Haven't we taken on a guarantee for the recreation center at Elizabeth Square? And so in this case, someone's giving us the guarantee. In other cases, we've taken the guarantee.
well, that's a little bit of mixing apples and oranges in talking about that, though. Because the maximum price on the contractor is one thing. It's nothing where we take on collateral in the form of a guarantee for a project.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Okay, so here, when you have complex, large projects like this, it is standard practice to get a contract like this in place. So are there any other questions? If not, it's been probably moved. Has it been moved? Has someone made a motion to approve this resolution? I think it was. Hello?
Yeah, I think Commissioner
Yes,
Nelson.
Commissioner Nelson motioned and Commissioner Kelleher second.
Mhm.
Okay, been probably moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2112. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. So ordered. That completes our Development and Finance Committee agenda items. We will now go on to Wheaton Gateway Project presentation.
Good evening again. For the record, Mark Servin, Housing Acquisition Manager for the Real Estate Development Division. I'm here to present the approval of the sketch plan submission for Wheaton Gateway. Next slide, please. So you get to see me again. This particular development, Wheaton Gateway, consists of several different parcels. For the record, over calendar year 19, we engaged in the design and development process with our partners, the Duffy Corporation, Duffy companies, Wilco, and our myriad of design team officials and elected officials to submit the concept plan. Wheaton Gateway team just over that time has solicited feedback from a number of other virtual town hall meetings. And from that concept plan, we've developed what you now see here as a sketch plan. So as we go through these slides, what you will see is not anything new, but rather an evolution of the concept plan. And just to reorient you, the parcels, the development is located at the intersection of Veers Mill Road and University Boulevard East. I can't point on the screen, but the parcel's worth noting. The smaller purple highlighted parcel is the former mattress firm site, which has been demolished. Adjacent to that, the Ambassador, now demolished. And the red consists of the Lindsay Ford dealership parcels. The Veers Mill East parcels across the street are not included in this development. Worth noting, on December 3rd, 2020, we did hold a virtual sketch plan pre-submission meeting to allow the opportunity for the community to review the sketch plan. We had nearly 100 members attend that meeting, including community officials, elected leaders, and receive real-time feedback, which we continue to address through our Wheaton Gateway development site. So we do have a full video where you can watch this presentation and see the three-dimensional graphic. So tonight, as we roll through the slides to advance the sketch plan submission, we'll go through this presentation to allow for approval of the sketch plan, then also to be able to submit it. Next slide, please. So here, once again, the sketch plan, it's essentially general enhancements since the concept plan was submitted. Some of the salient points from this, it's a better integration of the public space, a materially enlarged central public green. We improved a lot of the alignment of the central public green, pedestrian and cycle connections, and also enhanced building articulation and repositioning of the street corner. So the two images we have here in the center on the left is the concept plan, which we had presented to you. What's important to note, these are a massing diagram. So it's just showing you volume without any real detail or materiality or textures. That will come later in the site plan submission. So what you're seeing on the right-hand side for the sketch plan is just an evolution of the concept plan. So the building program is essentially the same, but we're just adding on elements to that. So while we've made considerable design improvements since the concept and sketch plan, the substantive elements of the development that you see are essentially the same. Next slide, please. This just highlights the development team. As you'll see, we have a number of design and engineering professionals from traffic consultants, sustainable partners, really in terms of the triple bottom line of just sustainability, people in place as the forefront of the development. Next slide. Okay. The next, I'd say 3 to 4 slides really highlight the community engagement aspect and what's occurred since 2019. So the concept plan submission initially occurred in February of 2020, and that was the process of just introducing the project and the development partnership as early as 2019. So prior to the drawings ever being prepared, we actually held 2 listening sessions on June 12th and June 15th in 2019 at Highland Elementary School. And we made that essentially a community charrette where stakeholders were presented with an overview of the project. We set it up with 5 different tables, and those tables were broken out into all the different subject matters that you see that have evolved in this current sketch plan submission. They were broken out into site design, building programming, sustainability, walkability and transit, and demolition of the ambassador apartments. So at each table, we had a scribe and a member of the development team, and that allowed us to get feedback from stakeholders about those various elements of the project. From that exercise, we've got 4 different buckets that we thought would be important in the development, which is walkability and pedestrian connectivity, supporting and enhancing the arts and local high-quality restaurants with outdoor seating, the unmet need for affordable housing and elderly housing, and more public open space. So the sub-bullet points are really what led the design process from the concept plan, and from the sketch plan, what continues to evolve. So we've got the potential incorporation of a food hall, public space, a collective design philosophy of 30% affordability across the development. We will include UFAS units as we've pushed the design team on West Side Shady Grove, and an emphasis on public space. Next slide. These next 2 slides, once again, are on our Wheaton Gateway website, but this just illustrates all of the public, in-face and online events that we've held for the community. Worth noting, some of the concept meeting was not a mandatory, but rather a voluntary effort by the team to inform the community of the project. So these next 2 slides show everything that's occurred in 2019 as well as 2020. Next slide, please. With April 2nd being a live stream presentation of the concept plan. So it continues to be an iterative process where we're soliciting feedback in real time. Next slide. These next 2 slides, once again, just drill down on the sketch plan or concept plan versus sketch plan enhancements based on community feedback. So the first image at the top shows you the sketch plan. On the right, the concept plan had a sort of a U-shape vehicular drop-off. The team is a fan of, we think that there's going to be a need for autonomous vehicles and enhanced vehicle and pedestrian drop-off. So on the right, it was a more of a U-shaped design, a much smaller public space. On the left hand with the sketch, we've enhanced that by creating a more vehicular route that can also close off on the weekends and be a public plaza area. And then we've expanded the green space at the corner for the public space. The bottom right-hand image just shows more of that shared and integrated space with a collection of images that we found in other parts of Montgomery County on how to balance the pedestrian and vehicular circulation. Next slide. A little bit more emphasis on just highlights. The top right image on the left, you see the kind of bare bones massing from the concept plan, and the last 2 images on the right showing the massing. You'll see that we started to show preliminarily where balconies would be developed for the development. One other note is that the corridor shown in light gray extends all the way out to the edge of the building. That allows us, as you see where this red circle is on the right image, to create a light shaft to basically bring the pedestrians out to the edge of the building. And as we change the articulation of the building, it allows us to pull that orange box with the retail closer to the street. So those are some of those enhancements that we talk about from concept to sketch. More importantly, when we talk about pedestrian safety and connectivity, the two bottom images show where we're modifying this speed turn, which is a very tricky intersection, to allow for bike lanes and also a proposed BRT station. We don't have the specifications for that station, but it would be integrated where you see that revised corner on the right-hand side. So main point here, having incorporated significant feedback on a concept plan, we've now prepared the sketch plan, which will be submitted for further review and comment by planning. We would then take those comments that we receive, and at some point in the pre-development time frame, we'd come back to you for submission of the site plan. Next slide. So at the 30,000 foot level, the development program, the vision, as you've seen through the images, a vibrant mixed use residential and retail development on approximately 5 acres, incorporating the highest levels of sustainability. We haven't identified the exact unit mix, but we are looking at 1, 2s, and 3 bedrooms, offering a variety of prices and target price points, 70% market rate and 30% affordable across the site. A mix of commercial space within the first 2 phases. And our development goals are broadly to build a comfortable, healthy, and durable environment, constructed and operated affordably. So emphasis on low utility bills and maximizing value. And the last bucket, sustainability goals, which we've gone over, similar to the Hillendale Gateway development. Next slide. Aerial view of the 3 phases. Once again, this is just showing that evolution, but the total program, approximately 800 units over 3 phases. Commercial and retail, about 50,000 square feet over 2 phases. So within phase 1, approximately 25,000 square feet, which could be for a food hall. This would open up to that central green area, potential festival areas. Phase 2 would also have some potential retail of about 25,000 square feet. Approximately 340 units in phase 3, approximately 110 units. One thing that you can't see from this image is that we've minimized the number of entrances on the development. So highlighted in black here is sort of the main residential spine. Under that would be a network of roadways that connect the garages to allow convenient entry and egress throughout the site in the various phases. And the reason for that also is along Veers Mill, there's a long unbroken median. So creating this central spine allows for vehicular access off of Veers Mill in and out the site. Next slide. These last, I'll say 4 images are just a couple of the renderings. This one just illustrates the enhanced building articulation that we discussed. The orange showing the retail block is pulled out to the corner. You can also see the balconies which are proposed, and the gray showing the structured parking garage. Next slide. This image here, once again, I can't point on the screen, but if you're looking at the area where this building articulation occurs at the corner, that gray vertical band represents the light shaft where the hallway is being extended. If you pivot to the right, where you see the pedestrian vehicular public plaza area that opens up to the green at the street. And then also where the parking garage is located, you'll notice a couple pillars which under there could allow for some flexibility between pedestrian space, almost like a market of sorts. And that steps down to the rear of the site. Due to the grade challenges at the site, it does step down. So those green bands that you see sort of going down towards East Avenue would function as stormwater management areas. Next slide. Lastly, this image here, once again, is just showing the proposed BRT station, the bikeways which would extend down to Veers Mill, come around the corner down University. Once again, this is just enhancing that pedestrian connectivity, showing the public space. and then just more allocation of the building massing and programming. Next slide. This perspective kind of gives you that experience if you're at the corner of Veers Mill and University, showing that public realm and sort of the step down of that expanded green space area, also highlighting just the vehicle drop-off area. So this would be a part of enhancing that corner, incorporating the bikeways and really creating a street frontage that draws people in. Last slide. And this just shows the phase 3 component. This would be the approximately 110 unit development component. And as you'll see, there's some awnings there that open up to the single family homes that kind of bring down the scale. And there's also a garage entrance for that component of the development. Next slide. Lastly, just the development timeline. So once again, we kicked off the visioning in 2019. In 2020, the significant milestones were demolishing the Ambassador Apartments, and also the Mattress Firm completed just later in this year. The concept plan occurred in Q1, Q2 2020. What to expect from here on out, call it 2021 through 2022 would be the entitlements. So we've got the sketch plan, which we would be submitting next, comment and review from the county, additional community meetings. So entitlements would extend through 2022, and then also preparation of the preliminary subdivision and site plan. So you will get an opportunity to see this again. Building permit review, this is just an estimate, but approximately 2022 through 23, and commencement of the potential first phase of development in 2023. In summary, staff is seeking commission's approval to recommend approval of the sketch plan and subsequent submission to Montgomery County Planning to continue the advancement of the development. At this time, I'll take any questions you may have.
Marcus, this is Commissioner Kroom. 2 questions. Can you tell me how many floors is in this building, and is it a garage inside the building or no?
So it's essentially a structured parking garage under each one of the phases, and approximately 10 stories along the front phases at Veers, and then it gradually steps down at the rear on East Avenue.
Thank you, Marcus.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus, I have a question about the Brt Station. How are we going to avoid the problems like we had in Hillendale, where planning or DOT caused us to have to expend a lot of extra money?
Yeah, I think it's just going to have to be continue to be a collaborative process. So as we're going through, we're, blocking out those massings and discussing with the county partners as we go through that review. So part of showing where that site is now is just blocking out, and the team has some, lessons learned from Hillendale that we make sure we'll just continue to have those discussions. So. But we've at least planned for it, so.
Okay.
Marcus, Commissioner Burt, have you heard any rumblings about changes to Wheaton Plaza or the mall at Wheaton?
No, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of what they may be planning.
What have you heard, Pam?
Nothing. I just envisioned some changes coming because of the changes in retail, the whole concept of the malls kind of going away, changing to the outdoor town center, and just
going back to looking like Wheaton. Going back to looking like Wheaton Plaza was originally, huh? When it was an outdoor mall, shopping center. Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting. Before my time. Moving here, not age, but before moving here.
Two comments, Marcus. One is that I want to acknowledge the fact that this is probably one of the most visible, well-known intersections in Montgomery County. And yes. So the care and attention that we are paying to all the community outreach, in fact, is really very important to defining what the ultimate site's going to look like in terms of not only the sketch plan now, but the ultimate redevelopment of that over those 3 phases. So I want to say that, I really want to acknowledge that. Also on one of your slides, the sketch plan, on the left-hand side, you showed that on this site was going to be very high-end dining with the McDonald's next to it.
Hey, watch it. Some of us can only afford McDonald's, but no, I did see that too. I thought it was cute.
Yeah, I'm a fish fillet fan myself, but that was just an icon to show the existing McDonald's will remain there. We have a retaining wall that we share, but they are remaining and not part of the development.
Oh yeah, probably one of the busiest McDonald's. It's amazing.
Other questions from commissioners? If not, can we get a motion to approve resolution 21-13?
So moved.
I second Commissioner Croom.
It's been probably moved and seconded to approve resolution 21-13 dealing with the Wheaton Gateway approval of concept plan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered. That concludes the agenda for the regular meeting of the HOC. We will adjourn this meeting, but we will go into a meeting for Development Corporation where, because it's a special purpose enterprise, we have to then have a separate meeting in order to accept the action that we took at 2110. So the meeting of the HOC Commission is effectively adjourned at 6:06 p.m. And we will now entertain then I will call to order the meeting of the Metropolitan Development Corporation. The item for us for the agenda is for the approval by the corporation to accept the selection of Manor Feinstein Architecture, which is what we approved in resolution 21-10. Who's going to make this presentation?
Councilor Choi, please go ahead.
Good evening. The Board of Directors of Metropolitan Development Corporation. For the record, my name is Hyun-Suk Choi. I'm the Senior Finance Analyst on the Real Estate Development team. Staff already provided background to the selection of the architect, so I'm going to directly go to recommendation. So staff is recommend to the Board of Directors of the Metropolitan Development Corporation approve the selection of a Manor Feinstein architect as an architect of a record for the renovation, the pre-development phase, and accepting a loan of $559,375 for the architecture and interior designer service for the pre-development phase of the rehabilitation to be funded from the OHIF. All pre-development loan will be paid at the closing. I'm happy to answer your question.
Are there any questions? Can I get a motion to approve resolution 21-001-ME?
So moved, Commissioner Simon.
Commissioner Kelleher seconds.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered. We are now concluded with the work of the Metropolitan Development Corporation, and so we are officially considered meeting adjourned for the Development Corporation. I don't think I need a motion to adjourn, do I?
No.
Okay, so we now are officially, as of 6:08 p.m.
Wow.
adjourned the meeting of the HOC, including the Metropolitan Development Corporation. So I want to thank all of you all and hope that the rest of the year will go as efficiently as this one has gone, getting through a very laborious agenda. So I want to thank the staff for all the work that you've done, committees for all the work you've been able to accomplish in getting us to this point. And I look forward to a wonderful 2021 year with the Housing Opportunity Commission. Thank all of you all for your participation.
Thank you,
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Priest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year all. Stay
Happy
safe.
New Year.
You too.
Aye.
Bye.
Bye.